The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, Nodulator Pro, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Bern Tobin here, back on the Soybean School with Rob Miller from BASF, and we're going to talk Dicamba again here today, part 2 of our series, and thanks to Woodrow Farms right here outside Guelph for giving us some shelter on a pretty cool day. And part 1 of this series, Rob, we talked about weed management strategies. This part 2, I want to talk about application. And it really comes down to managing off-target movement, and 2 key concepts here: volatility and drift. Let's start with volatility.
Yes, so volatility does not equal drift. Volatility occurs when the spray droplet actually lands on the surface and then vaporizes into a gas. And for the most part, herbicides are more volatile off of green tissue than they are off of bare soil. So that's why we're really recommending an early pre-plant application with some of these new dicamba formulations.
No, you have to manage volatility. Yep. You also have to manage drift.
Yes, definitely. So drift is actually the physical movement of that spray droplet. So you always want to take into consideration the label recommendations. And we've actually changed our label on the Ingenia herbicide to actually minimize off-target movement as it relates to drift. Some of those things would include boom height. So you want to make sure that your boom height is no more than 50 centimeters above that target. You want to definitely not add any spray additive. So something like ammonium sulfate can actually alter the volatility properties of these new chemistries and make them more volatile. So you definitely don't want to make sure that you do not add any of those spray additives that are not on the label. You also want to make sure that you're aware of the sensitive crops in the area. And we always hear a lot about some of the horticultural crops and the veggie crops, but actually non-extend soybeans are actually extremely sensitive to dicamba. So that also has to be taken into consideration, any awareness of the crops in that vicinity.
Ground speed as well, right?
Yes, definitely, ground speed. So you want to make sure that you never drive above 25 kilometers an hour. And you also have to take into account apparent wind speed. So apparent wind speed is where if you're driving across the field at 10 kilometers an hour and you're driving into a 10 kilometer hour wind, that's equivalent to a 20 kilometer hour wind coming out of that nozzle. So that has to be taken into consideration with not just only dicamba technology, but also any herbicide application.
Now, I want to move to a little demonstration we have here on nozzles, because getting that spray as coarse as possible is so much a key, right?
Yes, definitely. As we look at this nozzle demonstration, we have 3 flat fan nozzles here. And you can actually just see how much mist is created from these flat fan nozzles. We're only running at about 40 psi. As we move to the more of a standard AI nozzle, you can actually see that we are getting more coarser droplets. So this would be considered more of a coarse droplet size. As we move into more of the newer AIXR nozzles, so then you can see that we're actually becoming more of a very coarse droplet size. This is still not large enough for a dicamba application. Actually, on a lot of our labels now, we actually have that you must use extremely coarse to ultra coarse droplet sizes. And that's where we must use a TTI droplet size. Larger droplets, getting it down to that target, making sure it doesn't move and not creating some of those driftable fines. And only these TTI nozzles should be used when using a dicamba application.
So Rob, a few final considerations here. You really talk about cleaning out the sprayer.
Yes, definitely. So when we talk about sprayer cleanout, and we actually talk about tank cleanout, but for the most part, the tank's actually the easiest part of the sprayer to clean out. It's all the plumbing, the filters, the end caps, the inductors, all those nooks and crannies of the sprayer can actually bind, the dicamba can get stuck there and affect your following crop. So when we think about sprayer cleanout, we always want to do triple rinsing, and also triple rinsing with a detergent-based cleaner. Make sure that you get that dicamba out of the nooks and crannies so it doesn't affect neighboring or following crops that you're going into.
Yeah, and make sure that overall the sprayer is clean, right?
Yes, definitely.
So another thing you wanted to talk about was temperature inversion. You really have to understand it.
Yes, definitely. So whenever you do a spray application, you always want to make sure that there's a little bit of wind, and even cloud cover as well, because that can actually help mix some of this warm and cold air. But what actually happens in a temperature inversion is you actually get the separation of the warm and the cold air. So it can actually take some of these spray droplets and not allow them to reach the soil surface, and it can take them, upwards of even a kilometer away, because it will not allow that to hit the ground. Temperature inversions are actually begin in the evening and intensify, and actually at the most intense at sunrise. So 3 things that you can actually identify a temperature inversion: clear sky, 0 wind, and dew present. That means a temperature inversion has occurred, and you definitely want to wait for at least the wind to pick up or that dew to burn off before you're making any herbicide application.
Hey, good thoughts, great insight. Let's wrap it up here. Some final thoughts on managing dicamba this spring.
Yes, definitely. So this is great technology. It's new technology. It's not every year that we get to launch some of this new technology. We have an extra tool in the toolbox, especially against glyphosate-resistant weeds and tough to control weeds in soybeans. We want to make sure that we use multiple modes of effective action to manage this technology so it's around for a number of years to come, and that involves taking a 2-pronged approach with weed management stewardship and also off-target application.
Awesome. Hey, great. Thanks for your time today, and let's get warm, and hopefully spring will arrive.